Rafael Fiziev just pulled out of his fight with Charles Oliveira at the UFC Sao Paulo card coming in October 11th. And while we do wish Rafael Fiziev a speedy recovery, all right, this got us thinking who is going to fight Charles Oliveira on short notice. All right, Charles Oliveira, I think, has made it a point that he's going to fight on the Sao Paulo card. Ideally, as a Charles Oliveira fan, I don't want him to fight right now, but since he is going to, these are probably the next couple of matchups that I won't say all ideal, but are realistic for Charles Oliveira. I don't think any top contender right now is going to take on Charles Oliveira. Like, I don't think Patty's going to come in on short notice. I don't think Holloway's going to come in on short notice. But there are a couple of guys right now that could fight Charles Oliveira on a few weeks' notice. It's a huge opportunity for these guys to get into the top five if they win against Charles Oliveira. So I'm going to break down all the fighters that could potentially fight Charles Oliveira on this Sao Paulo card because for one reason or another, this is kind of their golden opportunity to get into the top five. All right, we're gonna start off with the first fighter to talk about Benoit Saint Denis. All right, this is probably the fight that the UFC is angling for, because BSD is coming off a win against Mauricio Rufy, who was one of Brazil's hottest hype trains, at least in the lightweight division. And again, it makes a lot of sense storyline wise. Like he fought Renato Moicano, he fought Mauricio Rufy. I don't know. Benoit Santini has been fighting a lot of Brazilians, and now he's fighting arguably the best one, at least in the lightweight division. And stylistically, I do believe this is a fun matchup. You know, BSD, a marauder who primarily loves to grapple, and Charles Oliveira, although most of the time he just likes to Muay Thai on the feet, he's also got a wicked jiu-jitsu game that we haven't seen much in a while, but still, we know it's there. And I do believe that the scrambles will be very fun to watch. And overall, I think this is a very approachable matchup for Charles Oliveira. All right. BSD, I don't think has crazy knockout power. I know he got a head kick over Matt Fravola, but it's not like he's got crazy hands. So I do think that Charles Oliveira will take this matchup as like more approachable than someone who's got crazy knockout power in their hands or some wicked boxing skills, something that BSD, although he's improved, doesn't seem to have. So I will pick Charles Oliveira. There are some dangers here, but if this matchup were to happen, which I do think will be the most likely option, I'm gonna say that Charles Oliveira should win this fight. All right, now up next we got Matuesz Gamrot. All right, this guy has arguably more merit out of anyone I will be talking about throughout this video, but the UFC does not like him. They do not like his heavy wrestling approach. And overall, there's not a lot of exciting knockouts or highlight reel submissions on Mateusz Gamrot's game. And I just don't think Oliveira will really take this fight. All right, we've seen Oliveira fight Sarukian, and I do believe that Gamrot, maybe he's not nearly as well rounded as Sarukian. I do believe he's a better wrestler, and Sarukian was able to use his elite level wrestling to just kind of neutralize Charles Oliveira throughout the later rounds of their fight. While I do believe that Matej Gamrot has the most merit, again, he's coming off a win against Ludovic Klein, who was like a dangerous prospect on the come up. I don't think the UFC is really going to give him this fight. All right, now up next, we got Renato Moicano. I think this is the easiest fight to book because Moicano is Brazilian, and it's not that hard for Moicano to travel back between the US and Brazil. And I do believe that this can be fun if the fight is mostly BJJ. And this is a very approachable matchup for Charles Oliveira. Renato Moicano is known as a jiu-jitsu wizard who loves to take mount at control, very position heavy. I don't think Charles Oliveira is really gonna have to fear Renato Moicano's position game. And on the feet, Renato Moicano doesn't have knockout power, and he is very open to kicks. So Renato Moicano, I believe, is a very approachable matchup. Do I think the UFC is gonna book this? It's hard to say. I do think that the UFC would rather book Benoit Saint-Denis on short notice than Renato Moicano, but this is a very possible matchup, which is why I'm including this on my list. And last but not least, we got Dan Hooker. Not many people are talking about this matchup. I do see a chance that Dan Hooker can fight. Now, it is kind of unlikely. All right, I don't think this will happen, but this is the most exciting matchup out of everyone I'm talking about. But this is also the most dangerous matchup for Charles Oliveira, in my opinion. Sure, Dan Hooker might not have elite level BJJ or like wrestling, but he's good enough. And if you don't finish Dan Hooker in the first round, he will probably destroy you as the fight progresses because he hits hard, he marauds forward, and he's got a lot of volume as the fight progresses. Again, though, I do think there's going to be an early finish at the same time because Charles Oliveira's chin is a little bit questionable, and Dan Hooker can get grapple fucked. All right. I don't think this will happen though, but if it does, it's gonna be the most nail biting fight because you know there's gonna be a crazy back and forth scrap within like the first round or two. Overall, I'm going to say if I were in the UFC, I'm going to book Benoit Saint-Denis. All right, Benoit Saint-Denis is French. The UFC loves him. He's coming off a big win against Mauricio Rufy. It just makes sense, especially because BSD said that he was willing to fight on like 5 weeks' notice. All right, even the Rafael Fiziev versus Oliveira fight. He's been trying to campaign like, oh, if someone pulls out of that fight, I will be making sure to make the fight on short notice. All right, I do believe that Benoit Saint Denis is most likely the UFC's number one pick in this situation. Ideally for me though, I would love to see a Matuesz Gamrot fight. Now I know I said that Charles Oliveira is not going to take this fight because he might fear the wrestling of Matuesz Gamrot, but at the same time, I believe that Arman Sarukian again is much more well-rounded than Matuesz Gamrot. All right, his submission defense at least is a lot better than Gamrot's in my opinion. Like sure, Gamrot is an exceptional scrambler and he's a really high level wrestler, arguably the best wrestler in the lightweight division right now. But at the same time, Arman Sarukian is more well-rounded in my opinion in terms of the jiu-jitsu at least, and I could see Gamrot kind of fearing the guard of Charles Oliveira. I know Topuria was able to cut through it like butter, and I know that Arman Sarukian was kind of able to neutralize it after the first round where he almost got guillotined. But outside of that, Charles Oliveira's guard has been rather really impressive. All right. Oh, and I forgot to mention Islam Makhachev. Just jumping on the guard and then submitting him. But we don't talk about that fight. So overall, I would say Mateusz Gamrot ideally is the best matchup if it were me, because it's not like Mateusz Gamrot has some crazy one punch knockout power. And even though Matuesz Gamrot has elite level wrestling, I believe that if Charles Oliveira can beat Matuesz Gamrot, he's one fight away from getting back to the title because Gamrot, out of every single one of these guys here, is A, the worst stylistic matchup, and B, I think he's the best fighter out of all these guys. I know I said Dan Hooker is dangerous, and Dan Hooker is higher ranked than Matuesz Gamrot right now. Plus, he technically won against Gamrot. But I'm gonna be real. I thought Dan Hooker lost the fight to Matusz Gamrot, and it's not like Hooker has been known as the most active fighter. All right, on the off chance that Hooker jumps in on short notice, they'll probably book that because Dan Hooker's a well-established name, but I don't really recall a time Dan Hooker's really pushed for a short notice fight, which is why, although I think this could be exciting, it's just not realistic. So I'm kind of thankful for that. In conclusion, I want to say Matusz Gamrot ideally should be next off merit and also style wise. But I think the UFC is gonna push for Benoit Saint Denis, who I believe Charles Oliveira is going to smoke him within the first 3 rounds. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can get this channel monetized. But other than that, leave a comment down below your ideal matchup for Charles Oliveira on short notice. Again, if this were up to me, I would have pulled Charles Oliveira out of the card in the first place. All right, but that's not me. All right, I'm not Charles Oliveira's manager. I'm just speaking as a fan of Charles Oliveira. So we have to witness Charles Oliveira possibly retiring if he loses, and I don't want to see Charles Oliveira lose. So hopefully, we get a very approachable matchup for Charles Oliveira, while at the same time giving him someone that's like decently ranked that could possibly get him back to a potential title shot. Right, I'm still delusional enough to believe that Charles Oliveira can make a title run one last time. So hopefully that comes to fruition. But other than that, though, again, leave a comment down below your ideal matchup and overall my analysis of this. Otherwise, though, I will probably see you guys later. Peace.